Welcome to The Explainer. Today we're diving into a book so influential, so controversial, that its author's name became an adjective for cunning and ruthlessness, Machiavellian. But is The Prince really just a cynical handbook for tyrants, or is there something more to it? A brutally honest guide to political survival. Let's get into it.
Right off the bat, we start with this quote from the man himself. You see, this gets to the absolute core of what made Machiavelli so revolutionary. He's saying that to be an effective ruler, you can't just be locked away in some palace. You have to understand the messy, complicated reality of the people you govern. And on the flip side, for people to really get what leaders are up against, they need to see the tough choices they have to make. It's a complete rejection of idealistic, pie-in-the-sky thinking. It's about how power actually works on the ground.
All right, here's our game plan. First, we're going to look at the chaotic world that shaped Machiavelli. Then, we'll dive into his radical advice for leaders. After that, we'll break down his most famous metaphor. You've probably heard of it. We'll also look at a real-life example he used, and finally, we'll try to unpack the book's incredibly complicated legacy. So, The Prince wasn't written in some quiet, peaceful library. No way. It was forged in the fires of political chaos by a guy who had seen it all. And to really get the book, you have to understand the man and the absolute mess he was living in.
Yeah, forget any image you have of Machiavelli as some abstract philosopher. This guy was a political operator. He was a senior diplomat for the city-state of Florence, which means he had a front-row seat to the brutal, backstabbing game of power in Renaissance Italy. He wasn't just theorizing about this stuff. He was living it. He was reporting from the trenches.
And then it all came crashing down. After 14 years as a respected official, the powerful Medici family came roaring back into Florence and took over. Machiavelli was out. He got accused of plotting against them, was thrown in jail, tortured, and then exiled to his little farm in the countryside. So it was right there, at his absolute lowest point, that he wrote The Prince. You can almost see it as part political science and part desperate job application to the very people who had ruined him.
And the mess he was trying to figure out was Italy itself. I mean, just picture it. It wasn't a country. It was this chaotic patchwork of tiny, warring city-states. And bigger powers like France and Spain were constantly invading and treating Italy like their personal playground. Alliances would shift overnight, and the armies, they were mercenaries, basically hired guns who would fight for whoever paid them the most. This is the world that gave us The Prince.
So, in this world of pure chaos, what was Machiavelli's big idea? Well, he came up with a political playbook so radical it basically threw centuries of moral philosophy right out the window. He made this absolutely shocking argument. He said that for a ruler, being good in the traditional sense, being honest, merciful, keeping your promises, was a recipe for disaster. Why? Because in the brutal reality of politics, your enemies aren't playing by those rules. He argued that a prince who wants to hold on to power is often forced to do things that are, well, not good. He saw the state as a sick patient, and sometimes the cure requires some very strong, even poisonous medicine.
Okay, to really get Machiavelli, you have to understand this one word, virtu. And please, forget everything you associate with the English word virtue. This has nothing to do with being morally good. Virtu is about effectiveness. It's about skill, boldness, courage. It's that ruthless drive a leader needs to bend the world to their will, to grab fortune by the collar and make things happen.
And this right here is the whole point. For Machiavelli, the ultimate goal isn't being a saint or gaining personal glory. The only thing that matters is the survival and the stability of the state. If the state is secure, the prince has done his job, no matter what he had to do to make it happen. The ends, for him, absolutely justify the means.
So, if a prince has to be willing to act outside the law, what does that actually look like in practice? Well, Machiavelli gives us one of the most powerful and famous metaphors in political history to explain the two sides of power a leader has to master.
Machiavelli says a ruler has to know how to fight in two different ways. The first is with laws, which is the way of men. The second is with force, which is the way of beasts. He even brings up the ancient Greek centaur, the creature that's half man, half horse, as the perfect symbol. A leader has to be prepared to leave the civilized world of rules behind and embrace their inner animal when they have to.
He says a prince has to learn from two specific animals. First, you gotta be the lion. The lion is all about brute force. It can scare off the wolves. But here's the thing about the lion. He's not too bright. He walks right into traps. That's why you also have to be the fox. The fox is cunning, sneaky. He can spot the traps a mile away. But the fox is weak. He can't fight off the wolves. So what's the lesson? You can't be just one or the other. A great leader has to combine the lion's terrifying strength with the fox's clever deception. You have to know when to roar and when to trick.
And this wasn't just a theory for Machiavelli. He pointed to a real-life example of a prince who he thought was the perfect combination of the lion and the fox, the ruthless, brilliant Cesare Borgia.
So this guy, Cesar Borgia, he was the son of a pope, of all people, and he used his father's power and money to carve out his own kingdom in Italy with just breathtaking speed and brutality. He was smart, he was ambitious, and he was completely untroubled by things like morality or a conscience. For Machiavelli, he was virtue in the flesh.
Borgia was given this impossible task: go pacify the Romagna region. It was a total mess, completely lawless, run by a bunch of petty tyrants who were just bleeding the people dry. It was the perfect test case for Machiavelli's ideas.
So what did Borgia do? Well, it was a masterclass in political theater. First, he sent in his henchman, a notoriously cruel guy named Ramiro Dell'Orqua, to crack down hard. Dell'Orqua did the dirty work, imposing order through fear and violence. Of course, the people came to hate him. So, once the region was under control, what did Borgia do? He had Dell'Orqua arrested and, in a brilliant PR move, had him publicly cut in half in the town square for everyone to see.
And the result was genius. Machiavelli writes that the people were left stunned, but also satisfied. Think about it. Borgia got the order he wanted by letting someone else be cruel. Then he won the people's love and loyalty by punishing the very guy who did his dirty work. He got to be the lion and the fox at the same time. He brought stability, and at the end of the day, that's what the people really wanted.
Okay, so after all this cold, hard advice on cruelty, deception, and power, what was the point? Why are we still talking about and arguing about this book 500 years later?
Well, it's because after 25 chapters of this cold, detached analysis, the book's tone completely changes. The final chapter isn't cold at all. It's this fiery, passionate plea for a new leader to rise up and save Italy.
He's speaking directly to the Medici family, basically begging them to use the ruthless methods he's described to finally kick out the foreign invaders, this barbarous tyranny, and unify Italy. Suddenly, you realize he wasn't just writing a generic guide to power. He was writing a desperate blueprint to save his own country from ruin.
And this is the uncomfortable question that sits at the very heart of The Prince. It's a dilemma that every leader in history has had to face. In order to achieve a great good, like peace or unity or stability, is it sometimes necessary for a leader to do bad things, to get their hands dirty?
And that's the question we're left with. Was Machiavelli just writing a user's manual for dictators, teaching them how to rule through fear and lies? Or was he a heartbroken patriot, offering a painful but realistic plan for how to build a lasting nation in a world that was falling apart? That's the debate The Prince started, and it's one that we're still having today.